So, good afternoon, everyone. I am Rhea Henry, if you haven't met me. I am the City of Norwalk's Workforce Development Coordinator. And we want to thank you all for joining us for our third Norwalk Workforce Development Quarterly Committee meeting. So let's get started with our agenda. So our agenda for today, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So we're going to do introductions. I'll talk a little bit about my role and our goals with work in terms of workforce development for the City of Norwalk. We will have a brief presentation from a Norwalk housing study. We'll get a little bit into our workforce development efforts since our last quarterly committee meeting, provide a few updates on the Norwalk job board and the resource referral guide. And then we will have presentations from the Manufacturing Regional Sector Partnership, but also from healthcare workforce development initiatives. And then we will close out for the day. So, as I mentioned before, my name is Rhea Henry. I am the Workforce Development Coordinator for the City of Norwalk. Been in this role about a little over a year, and my role is really focused on increasing communication and alignment among the stakeholders in our Norwalk workforce development ecosystem. Another piece of my role is really focused on ensuring that Norwalk is tapped into workforce development initiatives that are flowing down from the state and the region. So I want to talk a little bit about our workforce development efforts and the purpose of having a coordinator and some of the challenges that we face in Norwalk. So our main challenges, currently there is employer-driven demand in Norwalk for skilled roles, but due to inconsistent communication and alignment among all of these stakeholders, such as employers, education institutions, social service providers, the population training providers, it's really resulted in one, underemployment for many of our residents, a lack of medium and high school talent for the businesses in Norwalk, and below livable wages for some of our residents. So to ground this challenge into 2 data points, the first data point I wanted to share with you all is about 42% of Norwalk households are struggling to afford their basic needs. And this is from the ALICE data that was reported from the United Way of Coastal Fairfield County. ALICE really stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed Individuals. So this 42% refers to, one, households that are below the federal poverty line, but also ALICE households, which are households that are above the federal poverty line, but are not making enough to meet their basic needs living in Norwalk. Another data point is for the graduating classes from 2016 to 2022, on average, about 30% of Norwalk public school graduates did not enroll in college or university within the first year after graduation. So what these 2 data points really tell us is that, one, our students may not have the skills needed to be competitive to meet this employer-driven demand that we have in Norwalk, and 2, that there are households in Norwalk that are struggling to meet their basic needs. So what our goal is to develop this integrated workforce development infrastructure in Norwalk and a strategy for Norwalk that'll then meet this employer-driven demand that exists, connect the job seekers in Norwalk to education and employment opportunities that will ultimately then lead to a livable wage. And now I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to invite Kevin Dworka to share a little bit about the Norwalk housing study.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Dworka, and I am one of the consultants engaged by the City of Norwalk to work on the city's affordable housing study in fulfillment of the Connecticut state affordable housing laws mandating that municipalities take a strategic look at their housing needs and formulate policies that respond to those needs. And thank you very much, Rhea, for including me in this meeting. I appreciate also your setup here and your presentation of some of that data regarding the ALICE households and the inability of Norwalk residents to meet some of their basic needs, which include transportation, and housing, right? So I wanted to put this study on all of your radar because of the intersection between housing issues and workforce development. The challenges that are created when a household's capacity to secure a high enough level wage or secure enough employment, the challenges that poses in terms of being able to maintain housing security. But there's also another piece here too, which is what are the implications of housing costs on the capacity of businesses in Norwalk to retain and grow their businesses? What effect do the housing prices, the limitations of housing supply for a range of income groups, what implications does that have on the local economy? So these are questions that our study is going to raise as part of our housing needs assessment. There's two ways you could help us, and here's my pitch to you. The first one is I'm going to put my contact information in the chat, and I really encourage you, please reach out to me with an email if you're open to just having even a 10-minute one-on-one conversation with me so I can hear your own thoughts about this intersection between workforce development and housing as you've experienced it within the purview of your own jobs. And the second thing I wanted to plug here was that we're having an outreach meeting for all residents of Norwalk, and you're all invited to on November 16th. It'll be kind of like a town hall setup where we'll really hear from residents what their housing needs are. So in the chat, I will put both of those in pieces of information, my email address, so we can maybe schedule a one-on-one if you're open to that, and then the details about the event happening next week, Thursday, at Norwalk City Hall. Thank you very much, Ray. I know you have a packed agenda, and so I will let you carry on with it. And if there's any questions for me, you can put them in the chat, and I'll reply.
Thank you, Kevin. And for sure, housing is definitely a big piece of the workforce development puzzle, so it's very relevant to our conversation today. So, moving into the next portion of our agenda is a brief update on our efforts since our last quarterly committee meeting. So in June of 2023, we hosted an exploratory Grads to Career event. This was an event where we invited a program to Norwalk to share a bit about how their program operated. This program is called Grads to Career. It's made in a partnership with Baltimore Public Schools, the Mayor's Office of Economic Development, and a local collective impact backbone organization in Baltimore called Baltimore's Promise. This program is really focused on career pathways for students that are not enrolling in college immediately post-graduation. And it's really a program that assists students with necessary training and access to employment in industries that are in demand and growing, and also assists them with access to livable wage employment. So the purpose of this event was just to learn about this program and to see if this was something that we could potentially replicate in Norwalk. Since October, November, we've really been focusing on our two resources that we will be talking about a little bit later in the agenda, which is the Norwalk Workforce Development Referral Resource Guide. We've been working on that update or refresh. If you're not familiar with this guide, I will talk a little bit more about it later in the agenda, but it is a centralized resource that identifies the different opportunities that are available to our Norwalk residents. We're currently in the process of updating that information and adding new information to this guide. So we're in the midst of that, the thick of it, really. Also during this period, we've really been focusing on the Norwalk Job Board marketing campaign. If you are not familiar with the Norwalk Job Board, it is a low-cost, hyper-local job board that advertises employment opportunities that do not require a degree, that are on a career pathway or have potential for career advancement, and that are in the greater Norwalk area. So we will also get an update on that in our agenda. And then finally, we've been really working to support the Norwalk Workforce Development Career Fair, which is next Monday at Norwalk High School from 5:30 to 7:30. And we've really been playing an integral role with our main partners in getting that up and running and the planning towards that event. I also wanted to share with you two new reports that were recently released that are very relevant to our work. So the first report is from Dalio Education. This report is really focused on disconnected youth in Connecticut. It reveals that 1 in 5 young people in Connecticut are at risk of being disconnected. This is based on 2022 data. Specific to Norwalk, about 1,114 students are currently at risk of being disconnected. And of those 1,114, about 27%, so around 300 students, are already being classified as disconnected. And for the purposes of this report, disconnection refers to an individual that is not currently connected to education or employment. So another report that's also been released that's more specific to Fairfield County is the Fairfield County Community Foundation's Business Collaborative for Educational Equity. And they released a report that focused on equitable education and career pathways for youth in Fairfield County. This report used Norwalk as a test study for Fairfield County. The report identified about 15 occupations in the county that drive 50% of livable wage jobs. Another key part of this report is that it reported a set of recommendations and interventions for the various stakeholders during Opportunity Youth Career Journeys. So the stakeholders they identified were nonprofit organizations, employers, local government, and education institutions. As you can see, the career journey starts from facing decisions all the way to working at origin jobs and advancing into gateway or target jobs. The recommendations range from career pathway resources or creation of those to, for employers, co-creating aptitude assessments, for local government, creating financial incentives to hire locally, and then for education institutions, high school review of career pathways with students. So there are various interventions that this report outlines, or potential interventions rather, that different stakeholders can implement throughout the career journey of Opportunity Youth. So I will be including both these reports in our correspondence, and I really encourage you all to spend some time reading them. It's very timely and very Norwalk specific, specifically this second report. I know I briefly mentioned this in our update on our efforts thus far, but we would love for you all to join us and get the word out about the Norwalk Workforce Development Career Fair. This is a fair that is hosted in partnership with Norwalk Public Schools and the City of Norwalk and supported by Norwalk Acts. It's open to everyone in the community, high school students, their families, Norwalk residents in general. This will be hosted on November 13th from 5:30 to 7:30 at Norwalk High School. It'll feature employment opportunities, training, education. We'll be hosting workshops such as Dress for Success, interview techniques, resume review, and we'll also have free headshots that'll be taken from 5:30 to 7:30. If you click on that QR code at the bottom, it'll tell you the list of participating organizations. It's just a really great opportunity for anyone that is either seeking employment or considering potentially getting some more training, or just want to see what's really out there to participate in. So really hoping to see a lot of you out there, and yeah, this is an amazing event to partake in. So I also mentioned this during our updates that we have two resources that we really have been working on in our workforce development efforts and ensuring that they are up to date and accurate, and just listening to the community and their needs. This is how we ended up creating these two resources. So I will firstly be giving you the update on the Norwalk Workforce Development Referral Resource Guide, and then we will be inviting Brian Griffin from the Greater Norwalk Chamber, which is a member of our steering committee, to give the update on the Norwalk Job Board. So for those of you who have not heard of the resource guide before, or have not seen it before, the Norwalk Workforce Development Referral Resource Guide is a centralized resource guide dashboard that is frequently updated. We try to update it every quarter. That really highlights the different workforce development opportunities and services that are available to residents in Norwalk. So education, training, apprenticeships, things of that nature, other support services that are available to Norwalk residents are all included in this guide. It's really kind of created to be utilized by social service providers at this time. But our goal is in the future to develop this to the point that it is more resident facing. And also it's currently being distributed throughout the community resource hub at the city of Norwalk. Since the launch of this resource guide in April, we have had about 840 views on the guide. We've also hosted 3 training sessions on this guide where we had members of the community join us for a live demonstration of the guide. They were able to provide feedback, ask questions, and really kind of give us some insight onto how user-friendly this guide is. So as I mentioned before, we're in the thick of the refresh process. It is important that this information is up to date because we're, gearing people towards using this guide. So the first part of the refresh process is really updating the existing programming information that is on the guide currently, ensuring that it's accurate and up to date, and if there are any changes that's reflected on the guide. The second part of it is incorporating the feedback that we've gotten from providers. So we want to ensure that this is the most user-friendly guide for case managers and social service providers, ultimately then residents at some point, just listening to the feedback that we've gotten and ensuring that we're incorporating it as we work to update the guide. And then finally, adding new programs. We're always looking at the landscape that exists of workforce development opportunities that are available to Norwalk residents. And we want to ensure that if there are any new programs or any programs that we may not have covered in the last iteration of the guide, that these will then be included in the new updated version of the guide. So that's kind of where we are with this resource guide refresh. Hopefully we will be completing this process very soon. But the purpose of this, as I said before, is to ensure that when we're gearing people or steering people towards this guide, that the information is very timely and that it's something that a resource that they can trust to refer their clients to. So that is the update on the resource guide. Now I will turn it over to Brian Griffin from the Greater Norwalk Chamber to provide an update on the job board.
Great. Thank you, Ria, and welcome everybody. I'm very encouraged to see a lot of new faces and a lot of new names here today. So we want to spread the word even further and get more people involved in this work. It's very important, as we all know. As Ria mentioned, the job board was one of the initial projects to come out of our workforce development initiative since Ria came on. Again, the primary intent being opportunities for people that do not have advanced degrees or a 4-year degree. We see a lot of seniors graduating and the opportunities for, meaningful careers are not there, or they're not aware of them, more importantly. So we want to connect local employers to local residents. That's really the idea behind this job board. And quite frankly, I'm not aware of anyone else really doing this. It's kind of innovative in that way. Local jobs from local employers for local residents. That's really what this is. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Fred Dimian from Patu, who was very instrumental in creating this job board. It resides on our website. I think there's the link in the chat there. But Fred did a lot of the work behind that. So thank you, Fred. Fred's a wonderful board member of ours. Also a shout out to Nuvance and King Industries, who kind of helped us think it through and populate it a little bit. So right now, what we need to do is to market this job board. So as you can see, there have been some job postings on here, but we need a lot more people to know about it. Employers and residents and job seekers. So we've done a little marketing here at the Chamber, but we're asking everybody. I know you all have your own communications lists and newsletters and whatnot. we really need everyone to start marketing this job board, spreading the good word. It's free to list a job on here. It's actually $1, and that's for some specific reasons, but it's essentially free to post your jobs here. Again, ideally, these would be something that would not require a degree, but we've had some other listings on there as well. So that's kind of our ask today. If everyone could help further this job board by marketing it and promoting it, you can contact me or contact Ria. We can help you do that, whether it's through your newsletter, through an email blast, social media, whatever it might be. So please contact us. We really want to get the word out more and start connecting our local employers with our local residents here. We also have a kind of a side committee. I see Rick Taylor from HMTX is on the call. Rick has spearheaded this, a committee focused on skilled labor. There's a great need in these industries for employees, but the people are just not applying for these jobs, or they're not qualified. So we want to ensure that they are through training and get them involved in internships and whatnot. So you'll hear more about that as well. Last, you heard from Kevin Dwarka just now. Actually, right after this call, I have a call with Kevin. So I'd also encourage you all to speak with Kevin in regards to affordable housing here in Norwalk. It's directly linked to our workforce development initiatives, and I know he would love to hear your feedback and input. So that's my report. Again, the emphasis being we really need some help in marketing the program. Again, just contact myself or Ria, and we'll get you going. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So these are a few testimonial videos from some of our partners. I will include these in the correspondence going out. As Brian mentioned, we've had the mayor do a testimonial, King Industries, Newvance Health, and Patu Solutions, to name a few. And these are some just local employers that really see the value in this job board. Oh, no. Okay. So next, we'll be moving on to our presentations for today. First, we will have a presentation from Dan Onofrio. He is the president and CEO of the Bridgeport Regional Business Council, which is the convening body for our local Southwest Connecticut Manufacturing Regional Sector Partnership. Followed by that presentation, we will have Bernie Park, which is a social venture partner. She's really leading a lot of the healthcare workforce development initiatives throughout the state, and more specifically in Southwest Connecticut. So we'll be hearing from both today. I will turn it over to Dan Onofrio.
Thanks, Ria. And just going to do a quick sound check because I was coming from a Google's Meet call. So I get a thumbs up that you can hear me?
Yep, you're good to go, Dan.
Very good. Thank you very much. And always good to see you. My colleague, Brian Griffin, down in Norwalk. Always good to see you, my friend. We continue to carry the torch. I think I speak for Brian too, on behalf of businesses throughout Southwest Connecticut here. So just grateful to be part of this conversation. I'm really impressed with the work that Norwalk's been doing on workforce development. I was down at the Fairfield County Community Foundation presentation just over a week or so ago. Very impressed with the work that you folks have done, and hopefully that'll continue to grow throughout the region. So again, thanks, Ria, for the invitation. And I'm sure many of you have heard about regional sector partnerships. Governor Lamont, I'll just backstory real quick. Governor Lamont, 2020, creates the Office of Workforce Strategy, and basically went to organizations like Brian and mine and asked us, what powers your economy? What industries really drive your economy? So looking at Greater Bridgeport and really this part of Fairfield County, sticking out is the healthcare sector, obviously with the two hospitals here. But peeling back, digging in a little bit more into the data, we quickly found that manufacturing was really close behind. And I felt I don't know, a little bit compelled, maybe because my father retired from Sikorsky Aircraft many years ago. But you hear often that manufacturing's dead, or it's no longer a viable industry. Everything's offshore now. That I really felt like, gosh, I just don't feel that that's right. And you start looking at the data, and it tells you a different story. And I tell this often to the folks on why we chose manufacturing to rally around. And it's pretty simple. You eliminate the employment numbers that Sikorsky and Lockheed Martin has in Stratford, Connecticut. They're 8,000 plus employees, and as you know, ASML down the road from both of us, they're well over 3,000 people. So you look at that sector, manufacturing, even without those two larger employers, that sector employs well over 20,000 people in the region. It's a pretty significant number. You drill down a little further to Bridgeport, Connecticut. Bridgeport, we have 170 manufacturers in the city of Bridgeport. If some of you may have been at our annual meeting in June, you heard from Paul Lavoie, who's the Chief Manufacturing Officer for the state of Connecticut. He's the only one in the country that has this role focused around manufacturing. And he shared at that meeting, the average manufacturing business in Connecticut is actually 23 employees or less. So it tells you that the manufacturing sectors, the businesses are just small. So that really motivated us at the Business Council here to really focus and try to rally around our manufacturing community and to help them with their workforce development needs, and hopefully start building a pipeline, a talent pipeline, so that we can do what we can to support them and keep them here in Greater Bridgeport. And ultimately Fairfield County. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. Hopefully I can do that. Let's see. And I just have a couple of slides to share with you. Nothing earth shattering. I know Shenton King's on the call too. So Shenton, feel free to chime in here if you can. Are you guys seeing the slide deck or no? Hold on.
No, we weren't seeing it, Dan.
Okay, let's try this. All right. There you go, right? Okay. So the state of Connecticut has, I don't know, half a dozen or more sector partnerships, and you'll hear from my colleague after my presentation around their partnership. But we're focused again around manufacturing. And I want to say the secret so far to our success has been folks like Shenton King from King Industries and the CEOs and the senior leaders that we've engaged. On the onset, we were probably one of the slower ones out of the gate to get organized. But once we got organized, I think we were pretty fast in terms of moving forward. And I'll share with you some of the things that we've done so far, really bootstrapping it over the last 18, 24 months, because we hadn't had any formal funding from the state of Connecticut until recently. But it's because we were really deliberate about really just keeping the group to senior executives, whether it's the CEO, the president, the COO. We had many manufacturers that we invited to the table that said, hey, I don't have the time, but can I send my HR manager? And at the beginning, we said no. We really were deliberate about keeping the presidents and CEOs at the center of this conversation, because it really needs to be led by them. It's not being led by me or Brian or any of my colleagues that are in these conversations. It's being led by the manufacturers. We really need to hear from them the issues that they're having around a workforce development and retaining and attracting talent. So it is an organized, the partnership, as you know, it's organized by manufacturers and it's led by manufacturers. And I think that's been really the key to our progress so far. And we started talking about, okay, what are the things that are just opportunities? And this is a slide that I always like to share. It's from Mike Rochelo from PTA Plastics. But he calls it the alphabet soup. There's many resources out there. The sector partnerships, the MIF group, the workforce development boards, you name it. We love acronyms, right? And the reality is, as I mentioned, the average manufacturing business in the state of Connecticut is 23 employees or less. They just don't have the time or the bandwidth to really decipher all this stuff that's going on and all these resources, and some of them are great resources that exist. And just because it's so convoluted in terms of how do you get access to it, how do you even know about it? So we thought that that was an opportunity for us to really rally around our manufacturing community and figure out a way to not only share knowledge and experiences that they've had with each other, but also to help decipher what are all the resources that are available to folks out there. So we're hopeful now that we have some funding. We're going to be hiring a full-time resource, really, that's going to be dedicated to this manufacturing sector partnership. In fact, we have 2 full-time hires. And one of them will be really to convene and continue the conversations that I've been having over the last 18, 24 months with our manufacturing community and keep those discussions going forward. But the other one is really just this, is a concierge type of individual that can work with our education partners to help our manufacturing community understand what state resources exist, what local resources exist, what training opportunities exist, and how do we marry and bridge the gap between the opportunities and the organizations that could use to help. So the commitment that they've made to each other has been what you see here on this slide, and it's really it's been great. We host a call every other week or so. It's about twice a month, and it's amazed me that they've for the most part everyone shows up each call, and I think it's because they enjoy the peer-to-peer interaction. They're hearing from their colleagues. They're sharing the pain points and opportunities that exist, and it's great because almost every call you hear about an opportunity that someone didn't know about, or a challenge that maybe someone didn't know or wasn't aware of. So it's been a great commitment on their part. I hat tip to Shenton and the rest of the group that have been engaged in the conversation so far. And then the other ask, that we've asked of the group is to share this particular partnership with their peers. It's important that we do get a groundswell of commitment and engagement from the manufacturing community, understanding that many of them are running a small business, at the end of the day. They're on the shop floor. So we're trying to do our best as the BRBC and working with my partners like Brian at the Greater Norwalk Chamber and the Greater Valley Chamber up the road from us, with Bill Purcell and other groups in our workforce board, Joe Carbone in the workplace. We're trying to just be a resource for these folks. And when we hear something that, hey, we can maybe help, we try to connect those dots on their behalf. And that's the importance of having these calls on a regular basis. So how are we going to measure success on this thing? And you'll see that the 3 KPIs that we've identified early on in this process. And I just want to give a couple anecdotal stories that have been so far proving out the importance of bringing this community together, this community of manufacturers. One is very recent, but we've actually had this experience over a year ago. But Lockheed Martin, you probably heard, they're going to be letting go about 170 engineers over the next few months. And in our partnership, we've heard of many of our partners saying, hey, I need an engineer. So we're hopeful that we're able to take and bridge the gap between some of those folks that may be getting displaced and getting them into an opportunity in one of our partnership organizations. So we've had a great opportunity so far of making some introductions to Lockheed, making sure that they're connected with some of these other manufacturers that may be able to take on some of these employees. Will we find and be able to place all 170 of them? Maybe not, but if we can do some, that's better than none. So I'm really happy about the progress that we made with Jennifer at Lockheed and connecting her with some of our partners in the Southwest Connecticut Manufacturing Partnership. The other one I want to just make mention of is number 3, and it's really the B2B sharing. And when I look at that, and one of the metrics that I've seen and experienced so far is we've had one of our partners looking to get, or had it, in their supply chain, a partner of theirs that was up in Rochester, New York, and getting this, I'm paraphrasing here, but they were getting the product in, doing what they needed to do at their manufacturing facility. Then they had to ship it off to Rochester, and then it had to go off to California. Then it had to come back here to Connecticut, and then ultimately to the end user. And just with the casual networking and the casual connections that we've made, they've identified a partner right here in Connecticut that can actually take out and eliminate one whole step of that process, where it doesn't have to go all the way up to Rochester, New York. It can actually happen right here in Connecticut, in our backyard. So it saves them the shipping time, the turnaround time. It's more effective and cost effective, they found out, from doing it here locally. And ultimately, it's keeping that work here in Connecticut. So those are just two really quick success stories that we've discovered over the last 18 months or so, that and there's many more to share beyond that, but I thought it was worthwhile to share with you folks that there is power with bringing this group together. So what else are we doing? So we did launch a website early on. It's called ctmakessit.com. Now that we've got some funding, you'll be seeing more marketing and promotion around bringing our manufacturing community to this website. But the idea behind it is really just to share information. Again, there's a lot of content out there, but to be able to bring it into one place under one newsletter where we can drive our manufacturing community and our executives and the professionals that work in the manufacturing space to a place where they can get information, be a resource for them. So we've launched that well over a year ago now, and you'll see us you'll probably start hearing more about it over the coming months, as now that we've got some funding to put behind it. But the other thing that our manufacturers came up with, which I love, which has been brilliant, we've been piloting this at just one of the high schools locally here up the road in Ansonia, Connecticut. But we're trying to educate. As you know, a lot of our students that are graduating high school, maybe they won't necessarily be going on to a four-year institution. So how do we get them exposed and educated to the opportunities perhaps in manufacturing, where they're still going to need to get some training, but have an actual career pathway in this particular industry. So Microboard, Nicole Russo, has installed some LCD panels at one of our local high schools up in Ansonia. And in the student center there's a slide deck that scans through for our students there to see, hey, manufacturing is cool. Maybe scan this code and you can find out more about Microboard or about one of the other industries that, or one of the other businesses, that are in this particular sector. So we know that we have to do a better job of connecting our youth to the opportunities in manufacturing specifically, that perhaps the students that don't feel like they are ready for a four-year opportunity, there are successful careers right here locally in manufacturing. So how do we connect them to those opportunities? You might have heard the other thing that we've done the last couple of years, we've hosted a manufacturing career day over at Housatonic Community College. The first year was great. I thought last year was even better. We outgrew the space. We had over 40 manufacturers over at Housatonic Community College. As you know, they have a great manufacturing center there. Last year, as I mentioned, we had over 40 manufacturers. I think 500 plus students came through. And what I found most interesting was it wasn't just the students. We did some light marketing to the general public, and I was surprised to see we had probably 100 or so adults come through to talk to our manufacturers. So whether they were looking for a career change or to upskill or whatever it may be, it was good to see that it wasn't just the students that we bust into Housatonic. It was others from around the general community looking for opportunities in manufacturing. And then the other work that I'm pretty happy about that we do need to do a little bit of a refresh is we did go to our manufacturing community in the early part of 2022 and ask them to send us their most critical jobs. And what we did was we took the most critical jobs, distilled down the most critical skills that would fulfill those jobs, and created this document that we published in September of 2022 called Operation Right Skill Upskill. And it identified the most critical basic skills. It didn't matter of the long-term job that it was fulfilling, but the most basic level of skills that are necessary for these most critical jobs that exist today in our manufacturing community right here in Southwest Connecticut. And it was pretty eye-opening, I think. I saw Christina Testabuzzi's on the call, who was with the Connecticut State College system. And, she was very helpful in this process as well. And, I think what's important is that we get this document to the education partners, see where the gaps are in their existing curriculum. And then, again, what can they do to fill the missing links, the gaps that exist within their curriculum to help fulfill, knowing now the most critical skills that are necessary for some of these jobs. So it's a little bit of a Herculean task, what we found. I think Christina will tell you that, but we are going to be going through a refresh of this particular document over the next several months, and we'll republish this back out to our education partners with the intent to hopefully get them the curriculum built in a way that fulfills the skill gap that's necessary to fulfill some of these jobs. So I'll stop there. I know I probably right up around 15 minutes here, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, Rhea, you take it from here. I think we made a lot of progress with our Southwest Connecticut Manufacturing Partnership. So my only ask is your day-to-day interactions. If you have a manufacturing friend or partner or colleague, let them know that we are a resource for them, and particularly as it relates to their workforce development needs.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's really informative. And I want to invite anyone in the audience right now, if you have any questions for Dan, or I'll be sharing out this presentation that he just presented and his contact information when I send out follow-up after this event. But if you have any questions for Dan, it'd be a good opportunity.
Yeah, I would just add one final note, Rhea, if I may. So right now, we've got a good 30, 40 manufacturers that have been pretty engaged. There's a handful of them that are showing up for that call every 2 weeks that I mentioned. But there's another 30-ish or so that are on the periphery that are really, keeping tabs on what we're up to. I will say that the majority of them are in the greater Bridgeport region and up into the valley. I know I mentioned Shenton King from King Industries down in Norwalk. This is to be a Fairfield County resource. There's over 400 manufacturing businesses in Fairfield County. So we're really hopeful that we can, continue to expand the net of opportunity down county. We do share the labor market. I know there's a partnership down in Stanford around technology as well. And, I think if the three groups that we have here can come together in some shape or form, it'd be great to be able to collaborate some more. So I just invite, again, anyone that may know any manufacturers down county or throughout Fairfield County to connect them with us would be great.
Thank you. Any questions for Dan before we move into the healthcare portion of our presentation?
No, I just want to say real quick, thanks to Dan. That was a very good synopsis of the RSP. And King is finding good value in being involved. And yeah, we look to anybody in this group that can help us expand our reach to other business owners that share like-minded concerns, questions, and interests in operating in Lower Fairfield County. One of the main issues or reasons why I got involved also is because there's almost like a disproportionate impact on manufacturers specifically in Fairfield County, just because it's basically become the bedroom in New York City. So it's been very helpful for me to join in on these calls to see how other business owners are dealing with some of the issues of operating a manufacturing company in Fairfield County, and trying to learn about some of the resources available to those of us that may not necessarily know about it. So I'm just also throwing my little pitch there for anybody else who knows of a manufacturer who might be interested in joining forces and joining up in this RSP. It's been a great resource for us. So thanks. And thanks, Dan. Thanks, Rhea.
Thanks, Shenton.
Rhea, if I may. Rhea,
Yes.
if I can speak.
Yes, you may speak.
Thank you. Winthrop Baum here at 25 Van Zandt Street. We are the Workforce Training Center as approved by the Norwalk Department of Planning and Zoning. We would welcome any manufacturers to come into our industrial space here at 25 Van Zandt, a newly refurbished building. We're also open to taking on any type of trade school that might want to locate here in the middle of Fairfield County. Thank you very much for putting on this program. We look forward to helping anybody that would need our services. Thank you, Rhea.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Joanna from the Youth Business Initiative, and I just wanted to know if there's a contact, if you can share your contact information so that if we do know of any manufacturers, how do we get them connected to you?
I'll drop my contact info in the chat. Thanks so much.
And I'll send it out also via email when I send out the follow-up as well. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. We are a little pressed for time, so we're going to move into the next segment of our presentations. I'm going to invite Bernie Park from Social Venture Partnerships to share a bit about the healthcare workforce development work that's been going on across the state, but more specifically in Southwestern Connecticut. Thank you, Bernie, for joining us.
Thanks, Rhea. And Jesse, I think we can fast forward when you get the deck up to slide 4 because Dan did such an incredible job, I think, describing RSP. So I'll save everybody that little overview and give us hopefully some more time for discussion if there is any. And I don't know if it's having a hard time sharing. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So essentially what Rhea said is that we do have 4 healthcare RSPs that have launched across the state. We do not currently have one in the Southwest region of the state. So that is something that we hope to launch hopefully very soon. But we do have some really great local initiatives that are happening that we'll talk a little bit about through our Career Connect opportunity. Like Dan said, the common focuses for healthcare RSPs have really been educating and training the future workforce and really coming together on some policy and legislation that needs to happen as far as regulatory changes to help with the workforce training opportunities. So those are the shared agendas that the regional partners have identified that they are bringing to the state level. So this is kind of also making sure that we're aligning local efforts with state efforts and raising the voice of regional partnerships up to that level. So that is really the most important part of the regional sector partnership, is to really be that connective tissue between what's happening locally, like efforts that are happening here in Norwalk at the regional level, and then bringing it up to the state. So that is really the benefit of this structure, and something that we are really very happy to see organizations like Dan's and the work that they're doing with manufacturing. And he said they're behind, healthcare is behind manufacturing. So I just want everybody to realize this is all happening kind of within the last year. So we're kind of slowly catching up to the manufacturing. If we could advance to the next slide. Some of the initiatives that the RSPs are engaging in the Eastern region, we actually had an employer partner, United Health Partners, actually partner with USJ and Mitchell College to launch a new social work program. We actually did not have a social work program in that Eastern region of the state. And through these collaborations of having education and employer partners kind of leading these discussions, we've been able to actually launch some new programs. And that was actually through the funding available through the CT Health Horizon grant. We're also starting to see more and more cohort approaches to training. Three Rivers Community College and Apple Rehab have partnered at least 3 times so far this fall to really produce CNAs. So essentially putting cohorts of students through to meet the employer demand. And that's the model that we would actually like to see in the state, is that employers and educators are partnering and putting through cohorts. So we make sure that we're not just training individuals, but that we are in fact employing them as well. In the North Central region, we're seeing that the employers and educator partners have really started to develop a platform to engage disengaged youth, that 18 to 24 population that does not have a college or career plan. And they're trying to promote recruitment and retention culture in their work environments. Those are the 2 things that they have been really focused on with their employers. In the Northwest section, we're seeing that they actually developed a speaker bureau with 20 regional healthcare employers and representatives from the Black and Hispanic Nurses Association, really with the goal of getting into high schools and really educating students about the various healthcare roles. So it's not just exposing them to nursing, but to all opportunities that are available in healthcare. They've also participated in the Yukon Wish Fest, which they're using technology, SIM and AV, virtual reality opportunities to actually expose students to healthcare roles, and that's been very well received. We're also starting to see our nonprofit partners who have access to special need populations, such as folks that require multilingual instruction, getting involved in training. One of the barriers for CNAs is that English literacy is definitely important, and passing sometimes the CNA test in English is a challenge. So this program through Reba Spear is actually training CNAs in their native language to be able to successfully pass the test in English. So a new program that we're very excited for. In the South Central region, we are seeing that it's really doing a landscape analysis to really understand all of the training opportunities that are available. There are many high school programs, community-based organizations offering programs, and the colleges. So they are really starting to do that landscape analysis. For the statewide initiative, if we could go, CT Health Horizons. This is really probably the one that we're very excited about, that everyone in the state has access to. This was a $35 million investment over a 3-year period of time to expand the nursing workforce and social work workforce in Connecticut. It is doing that through tuition support for students from Alliance school districts or who are Pell eligible, and also tuition support. They're doing in faculty. So we're trying to address the bottleneck that we're having in education, which is mostly faculty and clinical. So we're also working with innovative funds, encouraging employer and educational innovation programs to address those issues. If we could advance to the next one. And then for our allied healthcare workforce, we have 4 initiatives that are currently happening in healthcare at the state. 2, fortunately, are in our region, in the southwest region of the state. One is with, and keep me honest if this is the Family and Children's Association that's working with NCC, and they're doing training in a lot of different fields, including healthcare. And then we have one with Waveney, Open Doors, and Norwalk Acts doing CNA training in this region. So those are the 2 regional efforts. The statewide effort is being led by the Workforce Board, the Workplace, who is the lead healthcare workforce board, in coordination with the other 4 workforce boards across the state, to scale their health career academy model, which is essentially offering concierge level workforce development assistance to people who are interested in healthcare, and connecting them to occupational training opportunities that are less than 10 months within healthcare and employment opportunities. So that's the model that we're trying to scale, and that's been going on for the last year. Hopefully we're gonna, Raya, I don't know if you've been able to get the data from the state on how many Norwalk residents have been able to participate.
I have not yet, specifically towards healthcare, no, but I do have statewide data from the state regarding participants from Norwalk in Career Connect.
Great. So those are really, we're kind of getting to that level now where these programs are starting to see increased enrollment. We're seeing more and more folks coming through. I don't know if you've all heard of the Career Connect portal. People who are interested in training opportunities go into the portal, they fill out assessment, they do a CT hire assessment as well for income eligibility, and it helps with WIOA funding. But then they are kind of triaged to the workforce board that is kind of the lead. In this case, it's the workplace, but other workforce boards have taken the lead in different initiatives, like in the Eastern region, it's manufacturing. In the Northwest, I believe it's also healthcare. I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know which one they're doing in the South. In the Northwest, sorry, we'll just skip that one. I don't know who everybody is the lead on, essentially. I know it's like biotech, I think is in the South Central, manufacturing in the Eastern region, and then this area, the workplace is our lead workforce board. And folks can come through this academy from anywhere. So like I said, the portal is a big source of referrals, but they can come from community-based organizations as well. And like I said, the model is really to connect folks with employment and the training that they need for these entry-level jobs in healthcare. And that's pretty much the three big things that we have going on in healthcare at the moment. Any questions, or I went through that pretty fast?
No, thank you for that update. It's that's nice. A lot of work being done there. Thank you so much. Your presentation though, and I have to hop off in a minute. I just wanted to say before I hop off, with the right skill, upskill stuff and the things that you're doing, really in the same vein in healthcare, I raise my hand and offer any assistance or even just, sleeves rolled up work on creating curriculums that might help individuals looking to enter the workforce that don't have a 2-year or 4-year degree, but are interested in a higher level career opportunity. Because it's interesting, chemical manufacturing, people are not necessarily thinking of chemical manufacturing as a job or a career where you could make $60,000 to $120,000 a year. And that in itself is a separate branding problem for manufacturing that we probably need to address separately. And we started to do that in the RSP, and we're probably going to end up getting back to that. But when I'm looking at like where it would be helpful, King would love to be able to target local folks graduating from high school, as long as they're above 18 years old, that may have gone through a manufacturing readiness program, level 1, 2, or 3, anywhere from entry level to advanced. And we would love to help create some of those curriculums, with any number of group of other manufacturers. We could get some kind of streamlined, readiness program. It would be really great because we have onboarding that takes about anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And there's so many of these core pieces. I think part of that was what Dan was speaking about earlier. When you look at right skill, upskill, if the efforts are ever unified here, I would love to offer some input there for at least the chemical manufacturing or manufacturing in general, just these readiness, certifications, if you will, the things that we look for in operators, like attention to detail, how to work with others, accountability, things like that. So it's all great and pointing in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Shenton.
Yeah, I do have to hop off. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you so much, Ria.
Thank you. And I know we're over time. Do we have any more questions for Bernie before we close out? Okay, well, thank you, Bernie, for that great presentation. I will be sharing these slides with everyone that registered and attended this meeting, so you will have, and Bernie, if you could drop your contact information in the chat, that would be appreciated for anyone that wants to reach out.
Ria, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Last thing before we close off, the best way to stay up to date with what's happening in workforce development in Norwalk is our Norwalk Workforce Development newsletter. This is a monthly publication. If you're not subscribed, it's pretty simple. There's the QR code. I will send this out in an email as well. But that's the last thing I wanted to share before we close out, just in case you are not already subscribed to this. I just wanted to close and say thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Thank you to Representative Dominique Johnson for joining us, and for our presenters. You shared with us a wealth of information. I know I learned a lot, and we're just looking forward to continuing to have more of these quarterly committee meetings where we can share with the community what we've been up to and just new resources as we become aware of them. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today.